I feel like I've just come back into the light. I've been steadily collecting physical media. Hello, Miss Pixie. On and off, consistently, really, for the last 15 years. I restarted serious collecting in around 2010. But a couple of announcements that came out today really revitalized my passion for collecting. And we'll talk about those announcements today, and I'll give you a little bit of history on how the idea of collecting in the first place back in 2010, how it started and how it got me hooked to the point where, unlike previous times, I didn't feel like I had to quit. In 2010, I lived in Newfoundland, and I just moved recently to St. John's to start a new job. It was going to be a new lease on my life, a restart, a refresh. A lot of things were going on and personally, and I was trying to just figure out exactly where and who and what I was. See, the entirety of my life, I'd always been pretty much a collector, whether it was comics or movies or video games, or just regular books. I collected a lot of things, but the thing was committing to one thing in particular, something that I really enjoyed, and it always came down to film. I grew up loving and being a massive fan of cinema, reading books on cinema, whether it's like, a book on Alfred Hitchcock or on Marilyn Monroe, or just on different films in and of itself. See, before we had the special features on DVDs and Blu-rays and 4Ks, the special features were the books that you read about film itself, and I still find those to be some of my greatest special features. Stephen Thrower's tomes on Jess Franco, for instance, or the Nightmare Cinema are invaluable to me. I love them. I just absolutely adore those things. But in 2010, I started a new job. It was a fairly well-paying job, and I was trying to decide a way to celebrate. I walked into my local mall, one I hadn't been in years, and I think the last time I was there was after going to see a concert and being a little bit tipsy. So it was nice to see the mall with clear, less foggy eyes. And upstairs there was a CD warehouse. Now I remember CD warehouse because I'd seen it in Corner Brook when I lived there, but that was a smaller one in a smaller area. And although it was at the time I was collecting VHS, it was harder to get, and the amount of money that I had that was disposable income at the time was very, very little. I saved up a long time just to get a few of those VHS releases, and back then I would have to stand in line because everybody wanted the latest Anchor Bay release, whether it be Halloween or Dario Argento or one of the many iterations of Evil Dead. And often there was only one or two copies, so if I was number 3 or 4, I wouldn't end up getting it. And I thought one of these days, I'm going to get and make the collection that I want. So it had been my first week on the job. It had been a pretty rough job, but the pay was good. And I walked into a store, the CD warehouse, and I found this. See, I didn't know something like this existed. For me, collecting, whether it be DVDs or VHS or the newfangled Blu-rays at the time, I didn't know something of this magnitude was a possibility. Sure, I grew up watching the Lone Ranger when I was a kid, with my grandfather and talking Western stuff with my dad over the years. So I knew this was something that I wanted. I looked at the inside, and it was filled with like comic books and 80-page commemorative books, episode guides, limited edition stuff. Kind of blew me away. It even had episodes of the cartoon, an episode of Lassie that had the Lone Ranger in it. I was kind of in love with it. I looked at my better half. It was a bit pricey at the time. And I'm like, should I? And she was like, this is something that you're not just going to want. This is something that you're going to treasure. And she could see the look in my eyes of amazement and astonishment. This here single release started me down the road of the path of the 10,000 plus movies that I have right now. You always remember your first one. And the 75th anniversary collector's edition of The Lone Ranger, seasons 1 and 2. This was the one. But it wasn't that alone. It was a cocktail of releases. After that, I went back to CD Warehouse. And there was this display, this front, kind of end cap display. And the had these here Roger Corman releases. My better half, Prana, was one of her favorites when she was younger, and I remember watching Humanized from the Deep and the Big Bad Mama films, and realizing that this was, a series that I could get, that they were putting out this on this company called Shout Factory that I knew little to nothing about. Really intrigued me. The closest I'd probably come to knowing about what would be a boutique label at the time would be Rhino, who had put out the Mystery Science Theater stuff, now being put out by, of course, Shout Factory themselves. But the combination of Roger Corman and that incredible release of The Lone Ranger got me excited to collect physical media. And it kind of steamrolled a bit from there. I remember picking up a Horror Hound magazine and reading about Arrow Video. I was amazed by what was being done in other countries and kind of dumbfounded that I hadn't thought about it before. It was around this time that Scream Factory started out, the sub-label of Shout Factory. And it felt like, to me, at the time when they started, what they put out, what they were releasing, was like going inside my head and picking out the wish list of films that I wanted my entire life. The movies that I'd seen at video stores. My goal, once I decided on it, was to make a collection that represented me, and not just represented me, but represented me in a way of the me that walked into the video store, that looked around at all these releases and dreamed of having going to a store that just has all my favorite films, that overwhelms me. And going to the horror section, going to certain sections of the video store, always did become overwhelming for me, and it was where I met a lot of my friends, where I got to talk to a lot of people at, where I did a lot of socializing. But the video store was pretty much no more. It was almost non-existent at this point. So the only way that I was going to really be able to recreate and make that experience was if I did it myself. So I decided to do that. Scream Factory was coming around. They were putting out stuff that I liked. Air Video came around. And eventually there was companies like Vinegar Syndrome that put out the kind of the weirder, more fringe stuff that I liked. And I noticed that companies like Severin and Synapse. My first Synapse release had the incredible band The Saddest Videos as a bonus disc, and that is one of the things that got me interested in collecting a lot of the video nasty stuff. I remember going to Montreal and picking up the Forbidden Hollywood, I think Volume 2, and it had a documentary that I'd recently seen on TCM talking about pre-code cinema, and it got me going down that rabbit hole. I was excited to collect, and I was collecting things that I really loved and adored. And more companies entered the fray. And you would think that that would be, a wealth, or wealth of a bountiful riches, a wealth, a wonderfulness. But it did get, after a while, a bit overwhelming, to the point almost of exhaustion, where when I was moving from Canada to Morocco, when I was looking at the aspect of like, I'm not going to be able to buy movies and physical releases the way that I could previously. I have to usually wait 3 or sometimes more months before I pick up another physical media release. I felt really okay with it. Maybe too okay. Maybe a bit relieved. It had gotten to be a bit much, and not that there wasn't good releases or good things coming from companies, or it just got to a point where I'm like, I have over 10,000 films in my collection. I do have a lot of the things that I want. I do have a lot of my dream titles. I even spent a year where I just went to collecting just television shows. I themed my years when it came to collecting and really tried to get the stuff that I really wanted. And that tended to be still coming out, but less and less. I was less excited about the big announcements, per se, of companies that I've been excited about previous years. Had the company changed, or had I? A lot of my more recent media hunting is from my trips to Spain, where I'm able to go and find a lot of really good Spanish releases of films from companies like Divisia or like Edition 79, where I can find a lot of Fantaterra releases. And more recently, I've been able to find a lot of the really good steelbooks from Warner and some great, amazing stuff like that. But I wanted to get something different on this trip. I wanted to get some releases where I knew I'd be able to open up the book and read it without a Google Translate. It had been a while since I looked at boutique labels in the way that I was about to. I went in with a bit of trepidation. I knew a store in Paris, and I'd met the owner there, and he had some incredible stuff, and I knew that he did import stuff. Luckily, a friend of my better half's was coming to Spain during that time period, and I would be able to pick up the releases that I got from there. But then it came to what exactly was I going to get, and could I find something that excited me, something that interested me? My initial choice, that was sought out at the time, and when I went to place my first order, one of the releases that I was most excited about wasn't there, so I didn't know if I was going to be as excited when I did get the releases that I got. And don't worry, we are getting to the announcement part of this video. But sometimes it's not where you get, it's how you get there. I'd seen this company before. I'd even been in a video where I had debated like which company was better. I don't think I won that one, actually. See, Australia has been putting out some of the best physical media releases, bar none, across the board of any country, which is kind of ironic considering certain companies have pulled out of Australia when it comes to physical media. Disney, I'm looking at you. But there were two companies that really kind of stood out. There was Umbrella Entertainment, who's just been doing incredible release after incredible release after incredible release, and had done this thing where they did a whole section of sublabels. But unlike certain companies, they were able to take their sublabels and really breathe life into them, so that when a movie was released for that sublabel, you really understood why it was there and that it belonged there. Whether it was Somewhere in Screens, or Beyond Genres, or Exploitation. There were so many great sublabels that they were putting out, and then all of a sudden they had switched things up. They were putting out these big, like, web collector's editions that are amazing. On that same side of the area, there was a company called ViaVision, and ViaVision had been putting out releases for a while. They had specialized in putting out like some really good TV sets and some different stuff that that I'd seen. It was very much like UK's defunct like company like Network, with some other companies put in, and they were starting on the launch of, and they did it of Imprint, which would be their boutique label. Imprint intrigued me a lot. Their stuff tended to be a bit pricier, but it also tended to be a better quality, especially if you look at their releases for television. And I am a massive TV guy, and the idea of the TV movie of the week was a big deal for me. It was water cooler moments. I grew up at a time when watching one of those TV movies was an event. Like even some of the cheesier ones, you'd be talking about it with your friends in school the next day. There's 3 channels, and everybody watched the same things. You didn't want to be that kid that got left out and didn't watch the cool movie episode. It's in a time when binging and everything is about, it's really hard to make younger people, for instance, understand how it was. It was an incredible time. So I picked up the TV Movie of the Week collection from Imprint. And these are, the first set had more like kind of like suspense mystery ones that probably would have like hit me a lot harder. Like I would have really went to grab it. These were different. These were TV movies, were message films. But I remembered the message films, the Martin Sheen's, take on, he's, alcoholism. There's the evil Ted Shackelford, like preying on helpless women, and even more helpless people in Fallen Angel with Richard Mauser. I remember these films, and yeah, they left an impression, sometimes even a bit of a scarring one. So the fact that the company had taken the time to put out these here releases with these box sets, these hard box sets, and these great, well put together packages and numbering and work, I was impressed, man. I was really, really impressed. So impressed that I wanted to try one of their Blu-ray sets, and I'm a big fan of the old classics, so Uninvited, Unseen kind of went with it saying. So I placed my order, and I was excited about what was coming from Imprint. Now I didn't know yet if it was going to meet my expectations or not, and my order was done, and I felt that it was good, but maybe not great. And then I got an email telling me that one of the releases that I wanted wasn't available anymore, and did I want to, before they packaged up my order, was there something else that I want to put in its place? So what I had initially gone for was a Quatermass Experiment, which had gone out of stock. Went back in, I think, the day after my order was completed. But the newest one that they had put out at the time was Quatermass 2. See, I grew up loving Hammer, and whether I was reading books on Dracula and the Hammer films, and or reading the old famous monsters that my dad had, and listening to my dad regale me with stories about watching these films in the theater and being such a massive part of his life, I knew that I wanted to experience these like in the best possible way that I could, and I'd been intrigued by this, but I didn't know how good this was going to be. It was a bit pricier for one film, right? But when I actually looked at it, you know, there's 2 4Ks, there's 3 Blu-rays, there's hosts of like graphic novel, books, features, featurettes, all stuff that I wanted to dive into, and I got it, and I was even more impressed with it than I thought I would be. Even my better half, who gets a bit more jaded now when it comes to these releases, she's seen me collect over 10,000 films. I think I can forgive her for like rolling her eyes a bit when I get a little bit excited about 1 or 2. But this was different, and even she could tell there's a difference in my reaction and the titles. Imprint had intrigued me. Hammer had reeled me back in. And that's why the 2 announcements today are so important, because I'm excited about collecting films again. I'm excited about collecting physical media again, more so than I have been for years. Because one of the things that drew me in, one of the things that made me so excited and so interested and so absolutely in love with this whole thing, that got me to start a channel to talk about my passion about this, to discuss it with like-minded individuals, was that companies like Scream Factory and Arrow felt like they got me, like they understood my love of physical media, and they understood the type of titles that I wanted to have in my collection. And although in the last few years I've gotten some really good stuff, it's been a while since I felt like a company has understood my wants and needs when it comes to collecting. It's been a while since I've felt like a company has got me. And then this happened. These here got me. Imprint understood what I wanted. I just made a video yesterday talking about upgrading TV. I made a specific note about Kolchak the Night Stalker, about how I longed to get a good copy of the series, how I hadn't picked up the Kino one, and I tried various times to get the DVD edition, and each time I got a faulty copy. I'd longed for a really good edition of Kolchak the Night Stalker, something worthy of being on my shelf. I grew up watching the show and the movies. I remember a trip across to from Newfoundland to Ontario, where I bought a copy of Night Strangler, the novel, and read it over and over again on the trip, because it was the only book that I had. I have a strong affinity to Kolchak the Night Stalker, and I've always loved this. It's honestly probably one of the reasons that I initially went in to do journalism. McGavin plays this role so well, and I really can't see anybody else in the role. I know there was a remake series, but it didn't last very long. And even that one used kind of a digital version of Darren McGavin, kind of in a background scene in the pilot episode. But this one here, from 1974 to 1975. See, I was 3 when the Night Stalker came out, and. Luckily, I got to catch it in reruns on TV. contrary to popular belief, I just didn't have that recollection of 3. This 4-disc set here, with 1,500 copies, with just interviews and commentaries and so much, with people like Amanda Reyes, with people like Kim Newman, with Barry Forshaw, with Steve Mitchell, just amazing stuff that I'm so excited to check out. Tim Lucas talking about the vampire, which seems like just, it's a given, the perfect choice. Do we have one? We do. We have one. So Kim Newman on Chopper. See, Chopper is a episode about a kind of a headless horseman thing updated to be a headless motorcyclist. For some reason, that episode terrified me as a kid, and every time I got a copy of it on physical media, that was the episode that didn't work. It was on a flipper disc, and for some reason, I'm guessing that probably the batch that I kept getting had issues with that specific disc. I recently spoke about upgrading V, because what I had was before was a flipper version, and I wanted to have a good edition of the film. Now for this here, this is upgrading for me from absolutely nothing to Blu-ray, and I love the look of this release. I remember picking up the VHS to rent when I was young, and I think the VHS had 2 episodes on it. Pretty sure it was like the Invisible one, I think, like an Invisible Night or something like that, and the Ripper one were put together for a VHS release. You can confirm that in the comment section below. I'd really appreciate it. But either way, they were just such great episodes, and the look of the set, the idea of having this kind of blows me away. But it doesn't stop there. See, they also announced Captain Scarlet and the Mysterions. If you know any of the Jerry Anderson stuff, this is the darker, like more, oh yeah, I want to say more adult one that they did. See, Jerry and Sylvia Anderson did stuff like the Thunderbirds, and of course, like the live action stuff like Space 1999. Captain Scarlet and the Mysterions was a bit different. It's a bit darker. The take on it was so good. And I remember watching this as a kid and kind of being mesmerized by it. I really love the Andersons' work. This one here is a 94-page book. It's a 5-disc Blu-ray set. Documentaries, even as like the pilot episode of Joe 90, which I'm hoping will be another series that they'll put out, and stuff from Audio Ventures from TV 21. So extremely excited about this here as well. It seemed like Imprint as a company was reaching into my mind and taking out and bringing into physical what I wanted, but not just what I wanted, but how I wanted it, how I hoped it would be packaged, how I hope it would be treated with reverence and with just the amazement and strength and quality that it deserved. And then they announced also that same day Department S. Now, if you don't know this series, it kind of predates X-Files and shows like that, and I really like this one. They had a spin-off series called Jason King, which I don't think I've actually seen any episodes of, but I have seen and really enjoyed Department S. They're putting out the entire thing on 7 discs, 6 discs for the series, and for the first time, going to be, for me, a disc that has 3 episodes of the Jason King series on here. Brand new commentaries. There's little featurettes on things and documentaries, and it's just so incredibly well done. It's got a 228-page hardcover book here. I'm so excited that this is a thing that's happening, that I have the potential to hopefully see, to hopefully hold in my hand. But as excited as I am about these brand new announcements, it was the announcement that came prior to this that excited both me and my better half, where she felt like it was worth it. That was right here. When they announced the Tales from Adventure collections, the more recent ones, 7, 8, 9, that I think really sold my better half on this. We're looking at like stuff like 3 different versions in 3 different eras for The Thief of Baghdad, a 6-disc set on with some incredible films, including some really cool Vincent Price ones, and of course the Doug McClure set with the Land of Time Forgot, The People of the Time Forgot, The Warlords of Atlantis, and At the Earth's Core. All of these look amazing, extremely well put together. The packaging, the features, just looking at it right now, I can picture it on my shelf. And as aesthetically pleasing, as amazing as it is, it's the films inside that really matter. And again, it felt like Imprint had reached their hands inside my head and brought to life not just titles that I wanted, but things that would excite me. Also announced today was this. The big collector's edition of The Curse of Frankenstein. Now, it's coming in 2 ways. It's one archives if you live in North America, or if you're like me and you get most of your stuff from like Europe, then it's the Hammer Films collection. Probably get mine through Paris. Get it sent to Paris. And it's The Curse of Frankenstein. So for those that are unaware, Curse of Frankenstein is the first Gothic horror film from Hammer. Some people consider it their first horror film, but I would say the Quatermass films, although leaning towards science fiction, are probably more so of the first when it comes to horror. There are certain sequences in Quatermass Experiment and Quatermass 2 that I'm not going to lie, they will haunt you. The look of this set here, the color of the green, the black faux leather case, the artwork that is done for these releases, it's just amazing. And the fact that they include the graphic novel, the fact there's a large book for the Books of Frankenstein, Volume 1. And I want to really let that sink in. Books of Frankenstein, Volume 1. So see that right there. Because here's the thing. This is Quatermass 2. Also put out was the Quatermass Experiment, the one prior to this, right? And one of my favorite things about this release is this book right here. It's the Quatermass Papers, Volume 2. The write-ups, the articles, the interviews, everything in here is absolutely fantastic. And it's probably one of, if not the best books I've ever seen in any release like this. Every article in here, every write-up, everything is just, it's done in such a way that it goes beyond just looking at the film. It looks at science fiction, looks at Nigel Neal, looks at Brian Dunlap. It just looks at so many different aspects. And it's Volume 2, see, because Quatermass Experiment was Volume 1. Exactly. We're on the same page, right? Curse of Frankenstein. The Frankenstein release. The one we just looked at, the Books of Frankenstein, is listed right there as Volume 1. The same as Quatermass Experiment was. And then came Quatermass 2. And the Quatermass Papers Volume 2 came along with this. So knowing that one of my favorite Hammer films, and just favorite Hammer franchises too, is getting this 4K treatment, and I'll go into it a little bit more in a second, was incredible enough, but going through the pictures and realizing that it says Books of Frankenstein Volume 1, that was even more exciting. See, if you've never checked out any of these releases before, this is the biggest release that they are doing. The first 30 has a quad poster limited edition. The next 200 has a signed photo by the Melvin Hayes who played young Victor Frankenstein. And the next 500 has a facsimile of the 1957 cinema premiere ticket. I wonder if you're in the first 30, do you get all three of those, or do you just get the quad poster? How does that work? See, I would love to have the archive photo, autograph photo, but I do want to have the 1957 cinema premiere ticket as well. For those unfamiliar, the regular, like these mega releases that they put out, usually run 5 discs. It's usually 2 4Ks and 3 Blu-rays, except that this one is being done differently. This one has 1 extra disc with it. It's 2 4Ks and 4 Blu-rays. And the extra Blu-rays usually consist of the first 2 Blu-rays will ape the stuff that are on the 4Ks. It'll be usually almost exactly the same, pretty much the same, except on Blu-ray, for some people who may not have a 4K player yet, they got your back that way. And there are usually standard edition releases that come out after the limited edition releases. But the 6th disc here, the first time that we're getting this one, the limited collector's edition, it will only ever be available in that edition. There will be no retail version of the set that's going to have the 6th disc. What does it have? Well, we'll get to that in a second. See, one of the neat things is it gives you the film in different aspect ratios as well, depending on like where and how you'd seen it. It's going to give you the feels of how you'd seen it, whether you saw it in the UK theatrically at a 1:66 aspect ratio, the full screen at 1:37 like it was filmed, or the widescreen that was done in North America at a 1:85. All your choices are there. You can watch them all if you want to. Comes with a brand new 5.1 audio mix for all 3 iterations of the film, alongside that original mono that I do tend to prefer. I love the fact that there's subtitles in English, French, Italian, Spanish, and German on each version of the film. Too often, and especially unfortunately in the UK, I do find that a lot of releases that come out neglect other countries when it comes to the subtitling. It definitely is a high-end case. I can tell you that right from the one that I have here in my collection. It's definitely a hard book. There's, of course, it's got the double-sided poster, 8 art cards, which is usually like facsimile of the lobby, and it is of the lobby cards. The Quatermass one's facsimile of the US lobby cards. This one, it's going to be reprinting the UK cinema lobby cards. The book itself is 168 pages, which is absolutely insane. The comic is 68 pages too. It's littered with features, not 1, not 2, not 3, but like 4 audio commentaries with everybody from Rigby to Stephen Jones to Forshaw to Constance Nazar to Toby Rohn. We got recreating the creature here, which is a brand newly done featurette. A fitting vocation, topped and tailed, which talks about Molly work on the, I don't want to get her last name wrong, so work on the contribution to the Hammer. We got stuff on Jimmy Sangster, on Dick Clemenson, on Madeline Smith, visiting Peter Cushing's beloved hometown, Gothic History of Frankenstein, Reviving the Curse, Hammer Horror for You, Harlow. It's just a proliferation of like features upon features upon features, and I won't go through all those, but I will mention the limited collector's edition disc, that the 6th disc that is there, because it includes the documentary that I think I had on VHS back in the day, but it's a bigger edition of it. It is Flesh and Blood, and it was done back in 1994. I remember having this on VHS. It is such a cool documentary. They're also including the Mr. Cushing and Mr. Lee behind the scenes recording made during the sessions for Flesh and Blood. So That's got to be absolutely fascinating there. We get Flesh and Blood narration outtakes as well. We get Tales of Frankenstein, which was a collaboration that they did with Columbia Pictures to do a Frankenstein TV series that only ever made it to the pilot. We get the commentary for that as well, and a featurette documentary on the Tales of Frankenstein itself called the Tales of Frankenstein. They list all the different articles on here. It's just so much, and I couldn't be more pleased. I couldn't be more happy. Couldn't be more excited. Between Hammer's mega releases and Imprint's diving into my love of childhood adventure films and incredible sci-fi and mystery-esque TV shows that I remember sitting down and watching when I was a kid. Sometimes I traveled a bit. I lived in different areas. When I lived in like a smaller area, the TV could sometimes be my best friend while I was making friends. I remember sitting with the TV guide and some snacks and sitting back to watch shows like Captain Scarlet or Kolchak. I remember also sitting back to watch Alfred Hitchcock, which is another one that's coming out from Imprint Films, and feeling at home and at peace. So for the first time in a long time, my friends, I'm excited. I'm excited to get releases. I'm excited to collect. I'm excited to have found stuff that really means something to me. And hopefully, through this journey that we're doing, you're excited too. Maybe not for the same releases or the same companies, but maybe you like doing it for a while like me and you kind of lost that along the way. But maybe there's a release that's out there or that's coming out, or maybe that you're just not aware of yet, that can reinvigorate your excitement in the way that this has done for me. I sat down last night, and Kitty Cat's in the room, and I started watching the Ausputation Rarity sets from Umbrella. And it was such an amazing experience. And I haven't felt that in a while. But I felt that. When I turned on those Imprint releases, when I started scouring the features on Quatermass, I felt that. I felt that excitement that I felt back in 2010, that I felt in around 2011, 2012, that eventually petered off and became almost too matter of fact. And okay, what's it going to be this time? And then feeling that disappointment when it wasn't something that spoke to me. These companies speak to me. Hammer's releases speak to me. It speaks to the cinema nerd in me that wants to go beyond just the experience of an amazing film and wants to delve and dive in and just let it wash over me the knowledge of so many great people that feed me more, let me know more about the sci-fi films of that era of Britain, of how things were taken. Take me on the journey of Nigel Neal and his frustration with Brian Dunleavy. Let me see Frankenstein and the different releases that are coming out in the future. Make me excited about watching these again, rewatching these again, seeing these again. Bring me back to my childhood and let me experience Kolchak and his just dogged determination to go and where most people would just turn and leave it. Let me see Captain Scarlet on his amazing adventures, and see the amazing Peter Wingard playing Jason King in Department S, and watching the flying carpet in Thief of Baghdad. I'm excited again. I feel like I've recaptured something that I thought was gone, that I legitimately thought was gone. Apparently, it was there. It just needed the right thing to bring it back. My name is Aaron. This is the Call to Cinema. Let me know what releases you're most excited about. What's intriguing and bringing that love of physical media back for you? Is there something? Are there certain releases? Are there certain companies that you just feel get you, that understand you in a way that you didn't even realize yourself, that you can understand yourself? That's how Scream Factory started with me. That's how the Imprint, that's how Hammer, that's how Umbrella, that's how those companies get me. I really feel that they understand what I want even more so than I do. I didn't know I wanted the cocktail combination of those Tales of Adventure sets. I didn't know that I wanted Department S, Kolchak the Night Stalker, and Captain Scarlet and the Mysterions. But the second they served it up, I knew there was nothing else. I wanted more. Thank you.
Oh God. Subscription sloth here. Just want to remind you that I know in the summertime especially it can be super warm and lazy. But if you're liking this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to go that step further and join the Patreon, there's a link for that down below. You can super sticker, super chat, or donate. But above all, just lie back and enjoy the video, because that's what I'm going to do.